This is Lauren Burke. Obviously, today is No Kings Part 2, No Kings 2.0. There are some major rallies happening across the entire country, including New York, which is what you're watching right now, the feed from Associated Press. In New York, obviously, there's a major rally happening as well right now in Washington, D.C., which I will be out in another, probably, I'd say, another hour. I'm going to go near the White House, and the White House is surrounded by trucks. What a surprise. It looks like a fortified camp. And of course, various Republicans had characterized the No Kings March today as some sort of, insurrectionist, Antifa filled event. As you can see, everything is peaceful. And looking at the feed from what appears to be a collaboration by Jim Acosta, the great Don Lemon, and the great Joy Reid, they had Rick Wilson on from Portland, and he spoke about Portland a little bit, of course, peaceful. There was a really interesting move from the governor of Virginia. The governor of Virginia, Glenn Youngkin, called up apparently the National Guard for what nobody knows. The first rally was peaceful. The second rally is, of course, expected to be peaceful. And this is a part of the right of the people to have a peaceful assembly, which of course is codified in the U.S. Constitution, which is the whole point of this rally, to bring up the Constitution, to bring up the fact that this country is starting to glide right into fascism and totalitarianism, and this president is ushering that in extremely quickly. This president who's only been in office now for a little less than 10 months. So, of course, any pushback to what he's doing is met with loads of criticism from some on the right. There's actually some never Trumpers out there who are not criticizing. Rick Wilson actually is one of those. At any rate, this is the No Kings March 2.0, and I'm going to watch some of that right now. This, of course, is New York City. Of course, once again, this is New York, New York City. I was actually at the first No Kings March in New York City, which was absolutely huge. It was so huge that you almost could be any part of it, was mostly the Lower East Side of New York, and run into that march. A lot of various media are doing live feeds today. I'm a big believer in actually going out there, taking pictures, coming back. Some of the photos I'll be posting on the Substack that I own, Black Virginia News. Some I might just do like a little slideshow show maybe tonight at 9 o'clock. And I think it's a better idea to actually be out there. It is a very nice day in New York and in Washington, D.C. It's like 75 degrees, sort of, I think, a warmer October day. A little bit of jacket weather, but very, very comfortable. This is Lauren Burke, and I have a channel called Lauren Live. I will say this: there's definitely a pushback this time on this march, a classification of this march as some sort of, subversive act, when really the right of the people to peacefully assemble, of course, is in the Constitution. Not that the Trump administration is paying too much attention to the Constitution lately, but at any rate, what we see from this president is introducing the military into certain cities: Washington, D.C., Los Angeles, Chicago, Portland. And I'm sure he's not going to stop there. It was interesting that he passed on New York, where you see this rally. You see that New York, of course, politically left leaning and 8 million people strong. You're going to get a lot of resistance in a town like New York. And he's getting, the president's policies are getting a lot of resistance in Chicago as well. as they should. And so there's a lot to be said here about where this country is headed, these types of marches and the gigantic size of these marches, and the fact that there's a lot of media control going on. We're going to see how this march is covered. It's going to be interesting to see whether or not these marches get the media attention that they should, given the amount of people who are out in the streets, because there has been some media suppression, to say the least, on what has been happening with regard to the pushback against Donald Trump's policies. That pushback was seen when there was a gigantic march in Los Angeles after the Marines were sent to Los Angeles. I can't believe these words are coming out of my mouth, but they are. After Trump sent the Marines into Los Angeles, and there was a huge march, pushing back on that. That didn't get a whole lot of media coverage. You could see it on TikTok, you could see it on X, you could see it on YouTube. But with regard to legacy media, it became very scant. And that was really, really kind of strange when you think about it. But at any rate, I am going to turn the sound back up. I'm going to find a few more feeds that are interesting, because there are some very interesting live feeds going on, conducted by journalists, conducted by individuals. Some of those feeds have various cities. Some people have Portland, some people have New York, some people have Washington. So this is New York that we're watching now in the Associated Press. I'm just going to find another feed. I'm going to find a few more feeds to look at. That may drop in Scotland and Joe Reed. They have a pretty interesting feed up. I think they're looking to New York. Yeah, they're looking to New York. This is the feed of one second. Let me just turn the sound down on the other feed. So this is the feed that Don Lemon and Joy Reid and Jim Acosta have, which is excellent. This is an example of how new media is doing their own thing. Some of the players from legacy media, thank goodness, have joined independent media.
Of the ACLU last night on the Joy Reid show, and she was making a really good point. Watch out for agents provocateurs. During the Black Lives Matter marches, right, of 2020, you would have these men show up in all black, trying to pretend they are Antifa. Understand there's no such thing as Antifa. They call anyone who is anti-fascist. Antifa is short for anti-fascist. They dress up as in black, and they were breaking windows and starting fires so that they could blame Antifa, this fictional made-up group that has now been designated as an enemy of the United States, such that any charity that donates to anybody but Republicans, any organization that tries to
And you hear Joy Reid laying it down exactly what's going on. What the Trump administration is doing is they're trying to criminalize anything and anyone who opposes them. If you oppose them, they try to criminalize it. They send out, now they're starting to get into things like taking over the IRS, which you can bet they're going to use the IRS as a weapon against their political enemies. This week, they indicted John Bolton and Tish James, and already you can see it falling apart with people in the Eastern District in Virginia, in Norfolk, prosecutors quitting their jobs rather than to participate in a unlawful, ridiculous political prosecution of Tish James, who, by the way, will be apparently appearing in court in Norfolk this coming Thursday, and I may, in fact, be there outside that courthouse. It's funny, I've been in that courthouse for a federal case I was working on the communications of about 2 years ago. At any rate, Joy Reid is absolutely right. What this group is doing, what the Trump regime is doing, is they're trying to criminalize anything that their political enemies do. So if their political enemies do it, we are going to classify it as criminal. That is the plan. They're using the full force of the government to do it. They're using now the FBI. They're using whatever tools they can. And I think they are going to get into the IRS at some point. And you're going to see certain IRS moves. It'd be very easy to do this when you have no scruples, and decide that, okay, we're going to do whatever we want. But it is great to see, if people want to enjoy that feed, it's great to see they've got Rick Wilson, Joy Reid, Don Lemon, and Jim Acosta on a feed, which is a really good idea because those four are amazing, particularly Rick Wilson and Joy Reid, and of course the great Don Lemon. To see these people unleashed to talk the way they want to talk. They're not on CNN anymore. They're not on MSNBC anymore. They can say whatever they want. I think Rick Wilson has always been unleashed. But anyway, at any rate, you can see the scene now on the screen is from Washington, D.C. They look as if, in the background, I can see the building that used to be the museum, which is now something else. And I can't remember what it is now, but it used to be the museum. That apparently appeared to be a venture that was not profitable, but that is Pennsylvania Avenue in Washington, D.C. And that right there is sort of toward near the Capitol, the Canadian Embassy. That white building in the middle of the screen is, in fact, the Canadian Embassy. And then not too far from there is the federal courthouse, and not too far from there is the United States Capitol. I'm going to go out into Washington, D.C. in another probably 40 minutes to an hour, and I'm going to walk over near the White House. I probably won't get too close because we can see that there's all sorts of barriers up around the White House and all sorts of drama because, of course, this administration is being heavily criticized, and they know it. And they are not, they're not happy about it. And then they tried to classify these marches as Antifa, and I doubt any of them could actually spell Antifa, much less know exactly what Antifa is. But they're trying to sort of make it seem as if there's some sort of tyranny going on because people are protesting this government that has been challenging democracy and ushering in an era of totalitarianism, such that we've never seen in the history of the United States. That our founding fathers would be rolling in their grave right now if they knew what was going on. I dare say that Ronald Reagan and folks like Ronald Reagan and Barry Goldwater would be rolling in their grave right now if they knew what was going on. But the scene on the screen is Washington, D.C. right now. I'm going to find another feed to see what else is going on out there. Maybe we go back to the feed of Jim Acosta and Don Lemon and Joy Reid and one of my personal favorites, Rick Wilson. He's been another one that is a part now of the Lincoln Project. And, it has been interesting to watch. Like I said, this feed is Roland Martin's feed. I'm surprised I don't see on that a logo, but at any rate, another fantastic effort in independent journalism, Roland Martin show. I'm proud to have been a part of that, and from time to time still a part of it. Another great show and another must watch, an absolute must watch. But a lot of independent media out there. Once again, this is a scene from Washington, D.C., and people are dancing very close to what I can see in the background is the Canadian Embassy. And so there's a lot going on in Washington, New York, and Portland, and I suspect Chicago. I'd see if I can find a feed of Chicago, because that would be interesting, given all the activity that we've seen in Chicago, which has been crazy. I suspect that there is a No Kings march, and probably a very large one, as a matter of fact, in Chicago. But let me see if I can find a feed of it. Once again, this is Lauren Burke, and this is a feed right now of the collab. It looks like. I wonder, are they using the new collaboration that YouTube has created? I've not used that tool yet. But Joy Reid, Don Lemon, Jim Acosta, and Rick Wilson. Let's turn the sound up and see what they're talking about.
And fighting for our First Amendment rights, not only as American for freedom of speech, but freedom of the press,
yes,
which we are members of. And, you know, we got kicked out of some of the clubs because we were so boisterous and vocal and truthful about the tyranny that was taking over America. And the networks, they just couldn't handle it. But here we are with our own networks. Rick Wilson, can you talk about that, please?
Look, independent media is one of the greatest threats to autocracy ever. Too many of these major media companies now are being sold to or bought by allies of one party and one president, and they built this machine where they own all the local stations, they own all the national stations, they own all the talk radio networks.
Right.
Folks, what you're watching today, it may not be as slick as CNN or MSN or Fox, but we're people in the streets talking to your fellow Americans, expressing ourselves not only as people part of the new media, but as patriots who are willing to go out here and say, nobody owns the American flag, nobody owns the Constitution, nobody owns this country. We're all part of this great experiment. We're the inheritors of this great and amazing gift. And part of that gift is free speech and free press.
Yes. Amen. And by the way,
I will say, I was just going to say, and by the way, we didn't pay any bribes to be on and do this coverage. We didn't pay any $15 million bribes to the Trump Presidential Library. That makes us independent.
Oof.
Exactly. And we believe in diversity, equity, and inclusion. How about that? Look at the diversity on the screen. Can I just go back to something that your social media guy got on the piece? And I do want to go back to him. I see he's talking to someone else. That he said it's a mostly white crowd. And most of the crowds we're seeing in most of these places are white. And I would add, it's not just that white folks have more resources. I actually think they have more responsibility. And people are stepping into their responsibility. The majority of white Americans voted to have this Trump regime. This is what they voted for. And so they're taking responsibility. And I am very happy, like I said, to see my spicy white folks out there saying we even if we voted for it, or if we didn't vote for it, or we stayed home, they know that their demographic is most responsible for this mess. And I love that they're out there taking full responsibility and putting their chest in it. God bless them.
Should we go back to them and listen?
Yes, please.
I'm I come from an immigrant family. My family came here for a better life. They believed in the American dream. I think ICE is just completely out of control. Every time I look at the media, I'm just I'm scared, honestly.
I'm going into Find No Kings. I'm going into Find No Kings Chicago, because of course so much has been happening in Chicago. This is Lauren Burke on Lauren Live. I will be out in the streets of Washington, D.C. in another hour. But before I went, I wanted to do a live feed of what was going on in the various cities on the various live feeds. The one that we just saw was a really great live feed by Joy Reid, Don Lemon, and Jim Acosta with Rick Wilson. Rick Wilson, I believe, is in Portland. Jim Acosta, I believe, is in Washington. And Don is in New York, and I'm not sure of where Joy is. Joy's in the studio there, but they're having a very good live feed, and it's very entertaining to watch. They were just talking about new media, and the new media piece is huge in this moment, because the government is starting to, of course, interfere with the media and interfere with who owns what. We are going to see a takeover soon of TikTok by the president's friends, and that's probably going to be nothing short of a disaster. We don't know that, of course, but for sure. But that looks like where it's headed. They want to control everything. They want to control what people see, and that is not good for the government to have that type of control over what people see and what and more importantly, sometimes what they don't see. This is Chicago. This is Chicago, where so much news has been coming out of Chicago in the last few weeks. And here we go. I'll turn the sound up.
Sorry. Thank you.
Or maybe it is New York if they're chanting hands off New York. So let me see if I can find Chicago. I guess I didn't recognize my own hometown. Let me see here. Yeah, that's New York City. Yeah, let's see if we can find Chicago. I don't think the Trump administration is interested in going to New York. But before they sort of skipped over that idea real fast, and they headed to Chicago. Okay, once again, this feed is of New York, the No Kings rally in New York. They're getting a little bit sideways. Somebody's got the cameras kind of going under some construction there. Nothing wrong with that. We're going to go back to a very interesting shot here of the Joy Reid, Jim Acosta, Rick Wilson, Don Lemon feed, which is fantastic. I'm trying not to.
People need to go in. It's pretty simple.
It's a pretty straightforward test. And let me tell you, all those New York Republican kids, if you guys think that is the only group chat where they're talking about how great Hitler was, I have a bridge to sell you. This is a broad problem now. These people have decided that it's okay to stand Hitler. They've decided it's okay to call black people monkeys and watermelon people.
That's right.
They've decided that's just fine. But the only sin they committed was getting caught.
Yes,
that's right.
And Rick, you remember,
I was going to say, Rick, you remember, because you've been in Republican politics long enough. The Bushes, I mean, the Reagans, they kept the nuts on the outside of the tent. They tried the best that they could, and now they run the show. And J.D. Vance the other day, when he was saying, "Oh, people should grow up," he should grow a pair. He should grow a pair, because that is what the vice president should do. Tell those people.
When I was a young Republican in 1991, working for the Bush administration, they took a bunch of us and said, "You're taking unpaid leave. You're going to Louisiana so that we can beat David Duke, the Republican nominee."
Wow.
That was George Herbert Walker Bush, who would not have a David Duke in his party. Now, I'm surprised David Duke doesn't have a permanent suite at Mar-a-Lago.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
And he might. We don't know. He might.
Trump had lunch with Nick Fuentes or dinner with Nick Fuentes at goddamn Mar-a-Lago. Yeah.
Come on.
Wow. And so on the, this is really great live feed here by Joy Reid, Don Lemon, Jim Acosta, with Rick Wilson, talking about so much that has changed in the Republican Party. It is unbelievable when you sit and think about it. And he's absolutely right. There was a time I can remember when George Bush was trying to recruit Hispanics into the Republican Party. He made a thing of that. And now there's no force apparently in this current Republican Party that even talks about that, much less does it. They've completely abandoned the idea of any sort of diversity or trying to appeal to other groups. That's over. They are now back in what I would say is the Redeemers Part 2 period of American history, where we have the Redeemers happen after the Civil War, when, of course, Lincoln signs the Emancipation Proclamation and frees the slaves. And then basically you had this period of trying to return to that period. There was a backlash to the benefit that those newly freed people had. And this kind of feels like the same thing. This sort of feels like an ascension of a backlash toward the presidency of the first Black president of the United States, Barack Obama. And as you remember, Barack Obama sort of made a joke to Donald Trump at the White House Correspondents' Dinner. And ever since then, Donald Trump has suddenly gotten into his head that he wants to run. He wants to run for president, and he runs, and he wins. And now all of a sudden, everything has become about enacting revenge on the left. It's just unbelievable that the United States has come to a place where, in fact, our democracy is crumbling. There's no doubt about that. Totalitarianism is on the rise, and there's this attitude. There's really a feeling, I think, on the left of really having a hard time struggling to figure out how to deal with it, how to confront it, and how to stop it, how to confront it. And the first order of business, of course, is trying to win the midterms in 2026. That's what Democrats talk about quite a lot. Problem with that is we now see the right moving to control the congressional seats of Black members of Congress, really trying to eliminate the congressional seats of Black members of Congress, in which case they would lead the United States House by 20 votes, 15 votes. And now you see the U.S. Supreme Court challenging Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act, because if they can destroy Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act, then all the southern states will move to eliminate the Black congressional seats through gerrymandering of about, I would say, we were probably talking about 10 Black members of Congress. So this is a historic time in the United States, a time never before seen in modern U.S. political history. And this No Kings March today is a pushback to all of the changes and all the things that people are seeing. And what you can see on the screen right now, it looks like, look to be New York. I'll be out in the streets of Washington, D.C. in another hour or so. I'm going to walk toward the White House. I'm going to take some photos, maybe talk to a few people, and then come back. And sometime tonight, probably at 8 or 9 o'clock, I will reveal what I recorded. You can see on the stage, I'm not sure which No Kings rally that is. It still has a DC feel to it. I'm going to turn the sound up for a few minutes.
To be dropped off at school, of people who can see each other cannot unsee masked ICE agents pulling up in our city and cities around the country. Of people who can see each other cannot unsee wickedness and spiritual wickedness in high places. Somewhere I read that the people other, cannot unsee vile hypocrisy in the land, but a people who are determined to see each other will collectively say, we will not bow. And I can see those three boys standing there, standing in clear defiance to the edict of an unjust ruler. And I can still hear them saying with me, saying with you, saying with people gathered all across this country today, to say that because I see my neighbor, we will not bow. Because I love my neighbor, we will not bow. Because I will protect my neighbor, we will not bow. Because greater is the one that's in me than the one that's in the world. I gotta say one name. That name is Bishop Kenneth Moles. None of you may know who he is. None of you may have never heard his name. But when I was a boy, I was raised in the Baptist church. And every now and then we also slid down the street to Greater Mount Calvary Holy Church. And that means when folk fall out and folk get happy and folk dance all over the church. And there was a man there named Bishop Kenneth Moles. And he simply said these words. He said, because our God is the greatest power, we will not be defeated. And I'll say it again. I know you may not have been to church in a while. I know we may not have seen you in Sunday school or Sabbath school or at the mosque or at the temple. But our God is the greatest power. And any kind of religion that is bound up and caught up in fear, any kind of religion that is bound up and caught up in hate, any kind of religion that is not characterized by love, beloved of God, throw it away. Throw it away. Throw it away. But I'm believing that there are people rising up all over this nation. There are people rising up all over this land, this sacred land. I'm believing that there are people rising up all over this world who will not bow to hatred, who will not bow to corruption, who will not bow to hypocrisy, who will not bow to fear, who will not bow to suspicion, who will not bow to political violence, who will not bow to a kind of religion that wants to be close to power, but won't empower anybody else. We will not bow.
Ladies and gentlemen, quite a speech there.
The junior senator from Connecticut, who is leading the fight against Trump's authoritarian power grab in the Senate and understands the only thing with the power to stop would-be despots from converting a democracy to an autocracy is mass mobilization by the people. Welcome, Senator Chris Murphy.
Oh, Chris Murphy.
How we doing, Washington, D.C.? You all know where you are, right? You are in the people's capital. I want to bring you greetings from Connecticut, the state that invented the submarine, the helicopter, the hamburger, the wiffle ball, and Pez. On our license plates, though, there's a very simple statement. It says, Connecticut, the Constitution state. We were the first state to adopt our own constitution. In my state, we couldn't wait to be self-governed. We couldn't wait to throw off the yoke of control and censorship from us. Before any other state, before our founding fathers, we wrote down in Connecticut the simple words, no kings. And I'm here today to share with you some unsurprising news. We are not on the verge of an authoritarian takeover. We are in the middle of an authoritarian takeover. But Trump has not won. Our democracy is in peril, but it can be saved. But no one's riding to our rescue, and I just want to be clear with you about that today. No one's riding to our rescue. There aren't establishment responsible Republicans that are riding to our rescue. The mainstream media isn't riding to our rescue. There's no oligarchs riding to our rescue. It is up to us to save us. All right. We the people! Now, recently, when I gave this warning that we are in the middle of that totalitarian takeover, one of my colleagues said, well, be careful. You don't want to scare people, but you guys can handle the truth, right? You guys deserve the truth, right? That's right. The truth is that Donald Trump is the most corrupt president in the history of the United States of America. The truth is that he is enacting a detailed step-by-step plan to try to destroy all of the things that protect our democracy: free speech, fair elections, an independent press, the right to peacefully protest. But the truth is also this: he has not won yet. The people still rule in this country. And today, all across America, in numbers that may eclipse any day of protest in our nation's history, Americans are saying loudly and proudly that we are a free people. We are not a people that can be ruled. Our government is not for sale.
No king! No king! No king! No king!
Now, I want to be honest with you about what's going on, and you know it. As we stand here today, the government is shut down, and shutdowns are painful. They hurt people. And frankly, that's why there was not a single government shutdown when Joe Biden was president and Democrats were in charge of Congress. Because we acted like adults. We negotiated with Republicans. We found common ground. We kept the government open. But today, Trump is telling Republicans that they shouldn't even show up in Washington, D.C. The House Republicans have been on an unplanned vacation from D.C. for 5 weeks. And there's a couple reasons for that. First, they're trying to cover up for rich billionaire pedophiles. But second, because Trump does think that he's a king, and he thinks that he can act more corruptly when the government is shut down. But he cannot. He doesn't have new powers, extra powers in a shutdown. The President of the United States during a shutdown, or even when the government is open, does not have the power to send masked men into our cities and pull off the streets our peaceful neighbors and throw them into the back of vans and into prisons. He never has that power. Whether it's a shutdown or not, the President of the United States does not have the power to use the FCC and the Department of Justice to censor our speech, to tell us that we cannot speak truth to power when we are protecting our democracy. He never has that power. And let me just say that I'm very proud of my Democratic colleagues who have drawn a line in the sand. And let me just speak for myself for a moment about this shutdown. I will not vote for a budget that throws millions of people off their health care just to pay for a tax cut for billionaires and corporations. And I will not vote for a budget that doesn't put some serious checks on President Trump's destruction of our democracy. In fact, no Democrat has a moral obligation to vote for a budget that just pays the bills for Donald Trump's political witch hunts. So this is a moment for the people who work with me in this Capitol to draw a moral line in the sand. And this is a moment for all of you to stand up and speak up. Listen, President Trump thinks that he can bully us into silence. He thinks that he can intimidate us into sitting this fight out. But judging by the number of people here today, judging by the number of people standing up all across this country, he thinks he can silence us, he thinks he can bully us, but he cannot and he will not. And the last thing I want to say to you is this. It's a simple thing. I get it that when you wake up in the morning, like me, you are filled with anxiousness, with anger about what is happening in this country. But I also want you to feel something else. Because this experiment, 250 years in, this bold, revolutionary experiment of self-governance in a nation that is a melting pot, where we are stronger because our differences from each other, right? That is a miracle that it has lasted for this long. And every single one of us needs to understand that when we wake up every day, we have an obligation, a duty, a responsibility to fight hard to protect that bold experiment. So I wake up every day filled with that same anger and anxiety. But I feel lucky that I am on earth at a moment where I can stand up on my 2 feet and have something to say about maybe the most defining fight of our lifetime to protect American democracy from ruin. I feel anger and anxiety, but I frankly feel joy that I have something to say and that I can tell my kids and my grandkids that when the moment came, I stood up to protect and save American democracy from ruin. And so you got a lot of awesome speakers here today. I heard a rumor that a guy named Bernie Sanders is in the house. I understand the role that I play. I'm just the opening act for Bernie, all right? But listen, I'm super proud of being here with you. I'm optimistic. I'm bullish about our ability to win this fight, and it's because 400 years ago, in the small but mighty state of Connecticut, we wrote down on a piece of paper a really simple idea. In America, the people rule. In America, there are no kings. Thanks, Washington, D.C. Appreciate it. Go out there and fight for our country.
That was Senator Chris Murphy of Connecticut, and Chris Murphy is one of the most outspoken members of Congress against the Trump administration.
Founder and CEO and editor-in-chief of the new media company, Zateo.
Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, friends, my name is Mehdi Hassan. I am a journalist, I am an immigrant, and I am a Muslim. I am everything Donald Trump loves. I am the Trump trifecta. I'm also a bit of a socialist, but shh, don't tell Stephen Miller, he alarms quite quickly. Can I just say, it is so heartwarming to see so many of you out here in D.C. today. D.C., make some noise. We need to make sure today that they hear us in the White House and in the Capitol. All week, I've heard Speaker Mike Johnson and Republican members of Congress say that this rally, the No Kings rally, is a hate rally. A hate rally. The people who can't get through a single day without hating on late-night comedians and overweight soldiers and Muslim politicians and Mexican immigrants and Palestinian refugees and black women and transgender kids and peaceful protesters and Mr. Freaking Potato Head, they are lecturing us on hate? Really? I'm not here out of hate. I'm here out of love. I'm here because I love this country. I love America. I love the First Amendment. I love our democracy. I love our diversity. Yes, our diversity.
Interesting speech here by Mehdi Hasan, who has the platform Zateo.
And watch our glorious American multiracial, multicultural, democratic experiment, our constitutional republic, destroyed by the guy from Home Alone 2. Not gonna do it. Because I did not inherit America. I did not inherit America. I chose America. I wasn't born here. I immigrated here. And we immigrants, we love this country often more than the people who are born here because we chose to move here, live here, swear an oath to the Constitution here, an oath that the guy down the street violates every morning and every night. The great irony is, of course, that Donald Trump is the son of an immigrant, the grandson of an immigrant, and married to an immigrant. In fact, 2 of his 3 wives were immigrants, proving yet again that immigrants will do the jobs that even Americans are not willing to do. I immigrated here from the United Kingdom. You want to talk about no kings? The UK still has a king, King Charles III, but even he has less gold in his palace than Donald Trump has in the Oval Office right now. Even King Charles has more respect for democratic norms and traditions than the whiny authoritarian man-child trying to send troops into as many blue cities as he can. This is a president who says he wants to be a dictator, but only for a day. Well, we are now 271 days into his wannabe dictatorship. He just went to see the Egyptian president Sisi, who is a military dictator, runs one of the most repressive regimes on earth. And he went there and he said, I want to praise your fantastic leadership and your low crime rates. This is who he loves. This is the autocratic leader he aspires to be. And of course, he was in Egypt hailing his Gaza peace plan, which is a ceasefire, yes, but not a peace plan. Donald Trump, the man who uses Palestinian as a pejorative, as a slur, has no plan for Palestinian freedom, no plan for Palestinian statehood, no plan for justice for the Palestinians who have been massacred and starved and genocided. And
Mehdi Hasan's platform Zateo covers a lot of news regarding what's going on in the Middle East. Our tax dollars, what's going on. And we're talking about taxes in chat, you know, $23 billion, $20 billion to Argentina, $23 billion to the Middle East in 2 years.
Violence, it is the presence of justice. So these are dark times. Genocide abroad, fascism at home, which is why it's so crucial that we gather, we organize, we rally like this. We mobilize, we pluralize, we bring people into the tent, we register voters, we defend voters, we become voters if we're not already. And you know, they say we don't reach out to the other side. We don't reach out to conservatives or Republicans, that we're in an echo chamber. Well, let me say to every Republican and conservative watching, aren't you the ones who said no more big government, no tyranny in America? So if you believe that, what are you doing defending masked federal agents in unmarked cars, bundling people off of the streets, including American citizens, and disappearing them? How are you okay with that? And if you're not okay with it, then come over to our side, the side of the Democrats, the small d Democrats, not the big D Democrats, not the Democratic Party, those of us who are from all parties and none. But those of us who care about saving America so that we can get to our 250th birthday and still be free when we reach 250 years. Come over to our side, the side of no crowns, no thrones, no kings, the side of freedom, of liberty, of the Constitution, the First Amendment, the Fourth Amendment, the 14th Amendment, the 22nd Amendment, which says 2 terms means 2 terms. And if you're not worried about Donald Trump trying to stay on for a 3rd term, you should be. He's literally selling merch. So I worry about free and fair elections in 2028. But then I say, why should I worry? I see all of you here today. What is there to worry about? We here today are not spectators. We are citizens. We are not bystanders. We are proud and patriotic Americans. And we Americans, we the people, will not allow our country to be taken over by demagogues and dictators. We will not stand for it. So let me ask you this. I need to hear you. Are you willing? Are you willing? Answer this. Are you willing to sit back and let Trump shred our freedoms? I can't hear you, DC. They need to hear you in the White House. Are you willing to let Trump shred our freedoms? Are you willing to sit back and bend the knee to fascists and white supremacists? Are you willing to be the Americans on whose watch democracy died? Good. Because people power is our last line of defense. Remember this. Donald Trump has never, ever, not in 3 elections, won a majority of the vote. Never. And I'll say this to you. I'll say this to you. Here's the math that they are scared of. There are more of us than there are of them.
Yeah, Mehdi Hassan is referring to the demographics changing in the country. For more on that, read Roland Martin's book, White Fear.
The majority. Yes, we are. And we have no intention of losing our country, our democracy, our freedoms to that twice impeached convicted criminal and his gang of grifters. No way. We will out-organize them. We will outvote them. We will outlast them. Because when I see you all out here today, in your thousands, in millions across the country, I have hope. I have faith that America can defeat this fascist threat, this authoritarian mania, this MAGA cult, and save our freedoms. And I also have faith and hope that one day soon, the Palestinians will be free. Thank you very much for your time. God bless you all.
And that was Mehdi Hassan from the news platform Zateo. He used to be an MSNBC contributor and, of course, had to leave because he was too candid on certain topics. He has his own platform and is doing just fine.
Liberties Union, who leads the ACLU's policy, campaigns, and organizing work to fight for civil rights and liberties nationwide.
The ACLU has been weakened in recent years. This is going to be interesting.
Voices of Florida.
Hello, everyone. Hello, DC. Woo! You look so beautiful. I wish you could see yourselves from here. You look amazing. You look powerful. I'm Deirdre Schieffelin. I'm the Chief Political and Advocacy Officer for the ACLU, the American Civil Liberties Union, and a proud Washingtonian. I'm so thrilled to be here with you, my community, today, doing the most patriotic and American thing that we can do, peacefully, lawfully protesting the Trump administration's abuses of power and exercising our First Amendment rights. After all, our country has a 250-year-old history of disagreeing in public, and we are not about to stop now. For more than 100 years, the ACLU has defended our country's freedom, especially the First Amendment freedom of speech. It's not just our opinion that everyone is entitled to their beliefs without fear of punishment. It's in our country's Constitution. It's the cornerstone of our democracy. Our basic American freedoms are not something that any president can take away from us. So why is Trump trying? What is he so afraid of? This moment is so much bigger than a political disagreement. It's about standing up for our rights and the future of democracy. The democracy we want is a country of freedom, a country of equals, a country of due process and laws that apply to everyone. not a country where masked ICE agents kidnap people out of their beds in the middle of the night, where they zip tie terrified children together. No. Not a country that tells schools and universities to teach ideology instead of facts. And certainly not a country that sends armed troops into our cities to scare us into silence. I refuse to allow that version of our country to take hold, and I know you do too. The courage that we are creating here today across the nation is contagious. It's powerful, and it's exactly what they're afraid of. I want to tell you something I've learned. The best way to protect our freedom is to act free. I was in my hometown of Buffalo, New York, a couple months ago, and I saw a new billboard up from the Buffalo Public Library. It said, "Free people read freely." Free people read freely. 4 words. I was so struck by the simplicity and the power of that statement, and by the fact that the public library felt the need to make it. Free people read freely. They think freely. They protest freely. They act free. The best way to protect our freedom is to act free. Thank you for doing that today. Thank you for your courage. It's powerful and it's contagious. We live in a democracy and we are going to act free. And with that, I'll turn it over to Sarah Parker.
My name is Sarah Parker, and I'm the Executive Director of Voices of Florida and a National Coordinator with 5051. But most importantly, I am a Southern Black woman, a proud Floridian, and a mother. I was taught to speak up for what's right and to stand against injustice, to place my little hand over my heart and to believe liberty and justice for all meant something real. But what I once believed America was is being crushed under the boot of this administration. I should be at home with my children, raising them to believe in the promise of this country, not standing here demanding the rights that should never have been up for debate. I am honored to be here today, but this is not what I dreamed of. I never dreamed I'd be standing on a stage like this while millions of people are forced to march and protest peacefully in the streets because we refuse to stand by while this country slips into the iron grip of authoritarianism. And I ask this administration now, when we say with liberty and justice for all, who is all to this administration? Because this administration has made it painfully clear. It sure as hell ain't the people who need access to abortion care. It damn sure ain't the people and their families being ripped apart by deportation and kidnapped in the dead of night. It's not our LGBTQ communities and BIPOC communities being criminalized just for existing. And it damn sure ain't the people marching for justice while the National Guard is unleashed on peaceful protesters in their own streets. Contrary to popular belief, the fabric of this country wasn't woven by oligarchs, corporations, or power-hungry politicians. It was stitched together by workers, by immigrants, by Black and brown communities, by women, by queer folks, and by people who refuse to stay quiet in the face of injustice. This movement was made by the people. This movement, No Kings, was named by the people. This movement is the people. And newsflash to this administration and for the people who need it, this country was built on protest. And some of the most important changes in our history happened because everyday Americans just like us. And now, those in power are trying to unravel it thread by thread, taking away rights, stripping away dignity, rewriting what freedom actually means. They've tried to silence us with fear. They've tried to gaslight us with lies. And politicians have stood in front of the cameras, smugly, I may say, peddling smear after smear. Because it's easier for them to smear the American people than to recognize what they're doing to this country. And where I come from, we call that cowardice. We refuse.
I'm gonna go to the live feed that Joy and Don are doing for just a few seconds here.
Country of what it can be. You know, when you have children, right, you think about what they can become and you love them as they are, but you also try to help them grow. You know, and America is a very young country. It is in the history of the earth a child, and it is a young country that is still going through its growing pains. And one of its biggest challenges is that it was born as a slave empire that now has to refashion itself into a democracy. It was born as an oligarchy, but we see and many of us whose families immigrated here, and Jim and my family were immigrant families, there's something that our families were drawn to that is a kernel of what America could be. It's not, they weren't drawn to America as it was, and my family came in the 60s. It was what it could be. They saw the potential. People outside this country, I have a lot of friends from outside of the United States who are in the African continent or in Europe. They see the potential. They see it, but they see us waste our potential. They see us throw our potential away, and it makes them sad for us. Right now, the predominant emotion among international people when they look at America is pity. They pity us. They feel like we have somehow lost something that was so possible and that we got so close to. During Obama, they were like, oh my God, you guys are almost there. You guys are creating this amazing thing and we all envy it. And now they look at us with pity because they're like, how did you let this fool, this incompetent, maybe senile fool walk back into your White House with Project 2025 tucked under his arm? They don't understand why we're going back to a king 250 years after we got rid of a king. They don't get it.
Well, Joy, to some extent, we are trying to lay down the ghosts of the 20th century. And they need to finally be put to rest. The ghosts of oppression, the ghosts of injustice, the ghosts of racism, the ghosts of putting people down. And when I see what's taking place in Chicago, and Don was just there, when I see what ICE was doing, it is in such stark contrast to the story that I heard from my dad when he came to this country. He came to this country in 1962, 3 weeks before the Cuban Missile Crisis, and first got to Miami. Then they came up to the Washington, D.C. area in Northern Virginia. He talks about how a Presbyterian church in Vienna, Virginia, gave them coats and sweaters to my family because they'd never experienced a D.C. winter before. He talks about the teacher at the Vienna Elementary School who took him out of class to teach him how to read and write. President Kennedy at that time did not call immigrants who were coming to this country rapists and killers. You didn't have immigration beating the shit out of people and pulling them out of school pickup lines and violating their civil rights. And when I hear about my But you contrast that with what we're seeing now. What we're seeing now with violate people's civil rights all around this country. That is not who America is. And I think it's part of the reason you're seeing so much energy on the streets right now. What they're that kind of like white nationalist fascism that he is trying to ram down people's throats, that is fueling this movement that you're seeing right now in this country, because they say, hell no, that is not who we are.
Amen. And your family came here, Jim, after this country needed to pay back its sole debt from Operation.
This is a great feed from Joy Reid, Jim Acosta, and Don Lemon. Great feed here. They've got like 20, 30,000 people watching, which is fantastic. And they're having a great conversation. I love the 2-shot where you have the 4 scenes of the other marches on the other side. Who is that at the podium? I can't tell. I'm gonna go look. At any rate, yeah, this is a great feed here. They had Mike Fanone in the lower left corner, and he's gone, but he'll probably be back. He's probably in Washington, D.C., if I had to guess. It looks like Washington, D.C. in that lower left box. This is a great idea, great feed by the 3 of them, and it really shows you the power of independent media.
He came under the same program as Barack Obama's dad. So Kennedy was paying back the debt that Eisenhower left on the charge of America. And now we are going to have a debt to the Latino immigrants, these hardworking people. Y'all all know, if you've ever been anywhere in the presence of these Latino immigrants, you know they're the hardest working damn people that I've ever seen in my entire life. They are keeping us fed. They're building our buildings. They're working in our restaurants. They're lining up at Home Depot at 5 o'clock in the morning, just wanting to work and take care of their kids and their families. People are like, oh, you need to be home with your family. They're doing it. And we are going to have a huge moral debt to them and to the U.S. citizens who are getting caught up in these raids, black, white, and in different brown.
But you were talking about Operation Wetback, rounding people up, but rounding people up from a country that they were here first. The border did not cross Mexico, right? Right. I mean, Mexico did not cross the border. The border crossed Mexico. And we need to be reminded that this is, let's just be honest, this is stolen land.
Yes.
And so if anybody is a real American or is deserving of having all of American, or whatever the American dream is supposed to mean, that would be Native American people, and quite frankly, Mexicans, people who were, who were here before white folks, before colonizers came. But I got to tell you, Jim, as you were talking about that, I got a little emotional because that, and the thing is too, is that before, I don't know, the last maybe 2 or 3 Republican presidents, or maybe 2 Republicans, especially Ronald Reagan, the gold standard. We're very pro-immigration, right? And wanting to figure out how to incorporate people into this country. There's no way you're going to stop it. It's just because of proximity. It's just right there. It's like here to here. You know what I'm saying?
That's right, Don. And I do know what you're saying. And I will tell you that you guys were old enough to remember when they refurbished the Statue of Liberty in New York City. Ronald Reagan was the president when they unveiled the new Statue of Liberty, refurbished Statue of Liberty. And he gave a speech out there when they did this, and he talked about how the Statue of Liberty was a foreign birth, that it was built by immigrants. He talked about Emma Lazarus in the poem, "Give us your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free." That is what America is all about. And look at what the Trump administration is trying to do now. There was just a story in the New York Times just the other day that said that they are trying to, through their immigration policy, design a refugee and asylum process in this country that prioritizes white immigrants. Right there in the New York Times. White South Africans, white immigrants from Europe, people who oppose immigration, those kinds of people that they want to prioritize to come into this country. That's a bunch of bullshit. That is not who we are as a country. And Ronald Reagan could figure this out. Ronald Reagan, he believed in diversifying his cabinet, people that served in his administration. Same with George W. Bush, had Alberto Gonzalez as his attorney general. Do people totally agree with the Bushes and the Reagans and all these kinds of thoughts? Of course not. I'm not talking about what I'm saying. But there was a time in this country where both parties kind of had the same idea of who we are as a country, that America is an idea. That is what America is supposed to be, an idea. Has it always been perfect? No, we've always been in pursuit of that more perfect union. And Republican and Democratic presidents have understood that for generations. It's this president right now who wants to be a king. He wants to change that, wants to change what the American idea is, what it is all about. And that's what we have to push back against with every fiber of our being.
Amen. Amen.
Can you stand by, Joy, if you will? Let me jump in. Can I talk about, because Jim, you mentioned Chicago. Can I just talk about Chicago, because I just left there not even a week ago. I heard so much misinformation from people, even there, but just in the media, and the propaganda that's coming from the administration, and the propaganda, quite frankly, that's coming from corporate media. the administration and people, there are people who agree with what this administration is doing. They think that they're just rounding the people up who are criminals, who are Latinos, who shouldn't be here. They call it illegal. I said, well, we don't have, people aren't illegal, or illegal aliens. I said, people aren't illegal and they're not aliens. They're not ETs, okay? But they are, that all of that is a lie. They are rounding people up who are U.S. citizens. I spoke to numerous people who were citizens who spent time in that detention center in Broadview, 8 to 10 hours, and then just told to go for, and then some of them getting citations after they were wrongfully rounded up and accused of not being, legal in this country. There was one black man that I interviewed. His name is Luther. I mean, just a meek and mild, the nicest man. He said they just came to his door and said he's in his pajamas. It's in the morning, and just rounded him up, said, you got to come out. You have to come with us. He said, I have in my backpack, because he was doing some business with the state. He had to take care of some things. He had his birth certificate, his state ID, and his social security card. They didn't want to see any of that. He said they rounded up people in his neighborhood that he had grown up with, and he knew they were African Americans. They were not non-U.S. citizens. They were born here. They put them in the back of a rental truck that you can go rent to move your furniture with no seats, nothing to protect them, and drove them as they are rummaging around in the back, trying to either stay seated or not slide around or stand up. Took them to this facility, did not want to look at any of their papers. They sat there in a cell with 40, 50, 60, 70 people in the cell with one toilet amongst them, no seat. They had to sit on the rim. They had to do their business in front of all these people. And then randomly, they would just come in and get people and say, okay, you can go. And they're like, well, where the hell am I? I don't even know where I am.
It's
insane.
This is what you have when you have no due process. And you have a Republican Party that's completely silent. And for anybody out there that thinks that it's just going to be one group, think again, because this entire setup is the Trump administration putting a ton of money into incarceration that makes the Clinton crime bill and the Clinton era of incarceration look like a joke, which that was the 1990s. Okay. And now we've got a multi-billion-dollar allocation for ICE. And then they've got the donors from various companies that lock people up and throw people in cages that want to get paid from that. You need people to run through that machine. You need people to put through that machine to make that money. That is what that is. And that's the tax money paying for these contracts. But you've got to have people for it to be justified. So this just, the wheels on this bus go round and round. It's been done before. It was done at the turn of the century in the early 1900s. They target a marginalized group and they make money off of that group. And the entire thing is a money-making operation. That's just what it is through the government contracts. But for incarceration, you need people. You need people to lock up. And that piece is not just going to be fulfilled by just the immigrant population. There's no way. There are enough people for it to be fulfilled by the immigrant population, but the point is they're not going to stop with just the immigrant population. I think that should be obvious to everybody at this point.
Without any restraints and throwing people, we are a human rights violator in the world. There is still international law. There can still be international trials, and there can still be lawsuits.
That's right. Enjoy.
Justice will come.
And you can see Aaron Parnas on the left, bottom left.
Aaron Parnas is joining us. Aaron, you're in Washington, D.C., and I see, Aaron, I follow you on social, as you know. And doing a great job reporting the news on social media forward. So Aaron, thank you for joining us. What have you been seeing? And then I want to ask you about, you did an interview with Adam Schiff, but talk to us about what you're seeing out there.
Yeah, I mean, there are tens of thousands of people here in Washington, D.C. right now. I actually do have some breaking news. Organizers just told me that this is officially the largest protest of the Trump era, and it's actually only growing. They're going to release official numbers later this evening.
Wow.
Well, I guess I have to end this feed soon and go out into the streets. It'll take me a good 20 or 30 minutes to get out in the streets of Washington, D.C. I am going to go toward the White House. Classic Aaron Parnas there, always breaking the news.
I was here during the first inauguration, and this crowd's bigger. So
there you go.
He's officially spicy. He's spicy. Aaron Parnas joining the spicy whites. Joining the spicy whites. They're here.
Okay, that's pretty funny. So Aaron Parnas is out there someplace. I see Harry Sisson, one of my other personal favorites. I think he's in New York. I wish I could run into. I could probably run to Aaron Parnas, but it'd be great to run into Sisson. At any rate, that's a great feed that everybody should check out. Don Lemon, Joanne Reed, and Jim Acosta are doing a fantastic job. Let's go back to the speakers in front of the U.S. Capitol at the Grant Memorial, which is just a little setup there where you can have like a little stage, and they have that.
Sometimes imaginary foe, we are confronting the possible end of our republic. We are here to tell our lawmakers that what's going on in our government is wrong. They must stop the abuses of this petulant president and his circle of sycophants. No thrones, no crowns, no kings. This president and his associates cannot tolerate dissent. To them, our free speech is frightening. They are arresting people and denying due process in courts. They tried to silence television hosts. They're trying to indict civil servants, prosecutors, judges, even their own cabinet members. But in this land, these sorts of actions are not new. In 1776, our ancestors had had enough. They declared independence from a king by means of a document stored safely right over there on Constitution Avenue in the National Archives. Although it was conceived 249 years ago, the Declaration of Independence describes a train of abuses connected with an absolute authority, a king with absolute power. No thrones, no crowns, no kings. Their king had refused to honor the law. Their king had refused to let lawmakers be elected. The king had made court judges dependent on his will. They cited the king sending, quote, swarms of officers to harass our people. Their language referred to, quote, cruelty and faithlessness scarcely paralleled in the most barbarous of ages. Their king was trying to, quote, render the military independent and superior to civil power. Our founders even censured King George for cutting off trade with all parts of the world.
Of course, this is Bill Nye the science guy.
249 years later, no crowns, no thrones, no king. In short, the founders believed their king was, in their words, quote, totally unworthy to be the head of a civilized nation. No thrones, no crowns, no kings. Although the United Nations has been the world's leader, and although the United States has been the world's leader in science for decades, this president and the members of his cabinet even failed to accept scientific facts. Contrary to Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution, they do not promote the progress of science. They suppress it to the detriment of our health, well-being, and international competitiveness. It is a formula for failure. How did we get here? It hasn't been one instance of abuse of the power of executive order by this president. It hasn't been just one twist in a court ruling. Instead, it has been years in the making. Enabled by this president, a group of Confederates has worked together to undo many of our traditions and understandings of fairness and of citizens' rights. And they've done this through an odd legal tactic to overwhelm our court system with legal game after legal game, trying to hold or impound money secretly in order to let legal deadlines pass, to pretend that people they don't know, who are from different backgrounds, are somehow not quite citizens and not worthy of respect under the law. No thrones, no crowns, no kings. Let us now raise our voices. We are here demanding a return to the rule of law. Let the world know that we will suffer no king. We will put the United States back on a course to lead the world in fair governance. Together, no thrones, no crowns, no kings. Thank you all. Let's change the world.
That was Bill Nye, the science guy, with a very spirited speech. Last time I saw him, he was getting the Medal of Freedom from President Biden, and in Biden's like last few weeks in the White House.
Director of Caring Across Generations and president of the National Domestic Workers Alliance and Care in Action, and Randy Weingarten, president of the American Federation of Teachers.
It's ironic some of the folks that are speaking at this event. I'm going to end this feed in a few minutes. I'll just say that I really enjoy the Joy feed. I'm really enjoying that feed more than anything else. But at any rate, no, there's a lot of great live feeds out there happening. And it's fun to watch. Again, fun to watch new media, fun to watch the technology and what people can do. Because this is going to have to happen certainly away from corporate media and away from media that has any sort of tie or tether to big money. That's just how it is. It's amazing how compromised media has become because of money. At any rate, this is Lauren Burke. This was Lauren Live. I may do another live at 9:00 because the name of the show is Lauren Live at 9. At some point, I have to actually come on at 9:00 live. So I will be doing that soon. I am going to go and walk. I'm going to go out, take a little trip. It's going to take me a few minutes to get toward the White House. I'm going to take some photos of some of the signs that people have. Hopefully run into Jolly Ginger. That's what I really want to do. At any rate, I got you. At any rate, I will see everybody soon. There'll be another stream soon, possibly at 9:00 tonight. We'll update. Thanks a lot.